Very innovative recruiter, smart guy, and that's why we're excited to have him. So give it up, Jayson Schmidt.
All right. Thank you so much. As Dan said, my name is Jayson Schmidt, and I have a very important announcement that I want to start this presentation with. I love the Michigan Wolverines. Yes, it's true. Thank you. Thank you. In the next 10 seconds, before I am escorted off the stage by security, who's giving me the thumbs down in the back, you know, it's not a big deal. It's okay that we've won one game in the past 15 years. That's fine. Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time, as you saw earlier this morning, and it's okay. I've actually had nightmares of being in this room and waking up in a cold sleep, or I don't even know what that term is. I walked outside for a minute yesterday, and I heard the band playing that godforsaken song one too many times, and I actually got PTSD and had to sprint to my car in the parking lot. So forgive me if I have to take a minute to realize where I am. Now, I will say this, the beauty of a university like this is it invokes passion. If you are a follower of the Ohio State University, you love this place with everything inside of you, because it invokes something deep down that gives you a certain courage to go out and do whatever it is that you do. Whether it's the football team, whether it's the rowing team, it doesn't matter. And every single one of you are entrusted with the keys to your program at your university for your sport. Raise your hand if you are the coach, either assistant or head of an NAIA program. Okay? We've got several of you here. Raise your hand if you're Division III. Wow, a lot of Division III in the house. Division II? I'm Division II. All 8 of us. What about Division I? Awesome, a good amount of Division I as well. Well, it doesn't matter what division you are, your ability to recruit is the most important thing about how you coach. I'm a firm believer in that because, as Dan was saying, okay, I started a program from scratch. I'm going into year 3 of actually having a team. I also had a recruiting year. And so, if you take my basic job description in that first year, what did they call it for me? They called it a recruiting year. They didn't call it, a planning year. They didn't call it anything like that. It was all about recruiting. When I was hired at Palm Beach Atlantic in 2016, they said, congratulations, you've got the job, and you've got 0 recruiting dollars. We're a Division II school. We can give athletic money to our kids. They hired me with 0 recruiting dollars as a budget. I was like, okay, all right. We'll make it work. Got to get creative, right? Got to be ingenious in your approach when you don't have any money. Well, November came around that year, and they said, Coach, got great news for you. We found some money. I said, okay, how much? I was hoping maybe 30,000, 50,000. Anybody want to make a guess? 15. It was 4,000, okay? It was 4,000, and you know what? That got me my first ever recruit. She's going to be a junior this year, and you can actually, okay, there we go. You can actually see, I think she's somewhere in that mass of 30 or so student athletes. That was the start. Now, eventually, the money did follow, but the concept of recruiting with creativity never stopped, okay? This is my sailfish family, and I would do anything for them. Of course, you would do the same for your program. Now, I'll ask you a question. What is your objective as a coach? For me, our goal is to transform lives every day with love, honor, and unity. That's the one thing that I can say in my sleep until I'm blue in the face. If you were to ask Jim Harbaugh, the head coach of the Michigan Wolverines, who is a good and great man, he would say that he wants to attack each day with an enthusiasm unknown to mankind. That's my Harbaugh impression. You all have a reason for why you coach, okay? And it typically goes back to, let me see if I can, there we go. Typically goes back to those kids, whatever they look like, right? So, having said that, you have to find your objective first and foremost. Now, as Dan said, I did present last year. I was at Boston University, and I brought that talk about how you, whether your program is large or small, can create an awesome opportunity to land the big fish, to bring in the kid that will forever change your program, or kids. Maybe you got to bring in a lot, okay? So what I do want to do is I do want to hit on just a couple of points from last year's talk, because last year I said that last year's talk could be 5 separate talks. And in fact, in many ways it is, because today I will take a section of last year and expand on it, and it's going to be super practical, okay? I will give you everything. I had nothing to hide. I was talking to a coach a moment ago in saying, I'm just going to tell you how I run my program. You can have all my trade secrets, and it's on me to innovate and be better for next year, right? If I don't find a better way to do things, I've got to do a better job, okay? So, the first and most overarching, I guess, point of last year was you have to create a disaster-proof plan, okay? Your process has to be sound, all right? If you are kind of going about, and Mandy was talking about it a moment ago, if you're just kind of going through the day-to-day just trying to survive, it's not going to work. There are coaches out there that are going to outwork you, that are going to outwork me. All right? And we have to be the ones that have a process in place to outwork them. How many of you coach at a college or university that uses athletics to drive enrollment? It's a lot of us. I know it's the case at my institution. We are a small liberal arts university on the water in West Palm Beach, Florida. I know Dan had mentioned that it's just, you know, one of the ugliest places in Florida. But we do have advantages. At the end of the day, we're still trying to meet those numbers, and athletics is used to drive enrollment, and it is used to drive tuition revenue. So if you can create consistent recruiting success, you will be super valuable to your athletic director and to your university president. I don't know how many of you know this, but we are hurtling ourselves off of a cliff in terms of how many kids are coming up through high school these days. All right? If anybody remembers the recession from about 10 years ago now, a lot of people stopped having children during that period of time. So in the next 5 or 10 years, there's not going to be as many kids coming through, right? All of a sudden, enrollment is going to drop at a lot of schools around the country. You've seen the news reports. Okay, colleges are closing left and right. I read one this morning, a school in Missouri that closed. Now it's a prison. Okay? I don't know about you. I don't want my college to become a prison. If you can picture that in your head, at some point in the future, if you don't do your job bringing in kids, your office may be used as a prison cell for a prisoner in the future. Maybe you already think it's a prison cell. I don't know. But having said that, the first point, you have to build a solid foundation. Okay, whether you do that yourself, whether you use Dan and his TCS team to create messaging for you, it's very important. I come from a marketing background, a business background. It's what I did full-time when I was an assistant coach getting paid $5,000 a year. Okay? I consider myself pretty good at this stuff. We still outsourced it. Okay? Because it gave us the ability to do what we do well, which is be relational. To go from information to communication to one-on-one with the kid. We skipped over the content creation process, and it was an incredible thing for us. So I would suggest that number one. Number two, make not knowing impossible. How many of you knew the name Palm Beach Atlantic University before you got here today. It's more than last year, so I'm thankful. But our greatest challenge will be making sure that people know what this sailfish is, okay? I think that my job will not be done until we become an Ohio State of the lacrosse world, okay? Is that realistic? Maybe not, but I'd rather have the goal that allows us to reach high and be in the faces of every recruit that we talk to and make sure that they know that little program on the beach that is eventually one day going to have loads of success and win a national championship. Raise your hands if you've ever won a national championship. 1, 2, 3, 4. Less than 10, which means we all have work to do, and we all need to make big strides in how we portray our programs and ourselves, because you are your program, as coaches. So, that third point, recruiting automation. It's one thing to have the content, it's another to deliver it with consistency. One thing that we found, to just say this first and foremost, a lot of kids were going to pdasailfish.com to get information about our program. It was talking about other sports and what they did, not who we are. So we created our own recruiting website, sailfishlax.com. We send any recruits to that. And now, instead of getting information about our new beach volleyball program or any of those other things, they're getting information about what we do and who we are. If you find yourself giving mixed messaging about your program because of what else is going on in your athletic department, I would suggest to you, look into that. Come talk to me. I'll tell you exactly how we did it, how cost effective it is, especially for universities. Okay? Fourth point, be where their eyes are. You have to adapt and meet them in their world. Raise your hand if you control your social media accounts for your program. Raise your hand if you've ever let one of your players control your social media accounts. A lot less. What I would propose is you need to give the keys to the car to them occasionally. Not all the time. I've got one player who I trust. She's an upperclassman. I trust her vision. We let her have the Instagram account. And it's scary, but scary is better than fake. Scary is better than inauthentic. And when you're recruiting 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, it's important that they meet their peers on an avenue that they are familiar with, okay? Additionally, to this point as well, has anybody ever used Snapchat to recruit? We got 1, 2 in the back. Love it. One thing that we have done in the past is we have geofenced Snapchat filters where we know our recruits are going to be, okay? It could be their high school on their birthday. It could be a recruiting event where we know there's going to be 2,000 kids, but you have to think creatively and you have to think outside the box to meet them exactly where they're at. Okay, and then finally, you have to find your special sauce. What can only you provide? We're a beach school. So we send bags of sand out to recruits. We send them Polaroid pictures, something that they can put up on the mirror of the beach and of palm trees. With love from Palm Beach. That's the stuff that we do to stand out. You may not have a beach, but you may have something that separates you. You may have something that is important and that makes your program great, but you have to tell the story. Messaging is everything, okay? So, how do you win? Take a drink out of my hydro flask. Anybody have a hydro flask? My favorite person on the planet gave this to me, and I didn't think I needed it, but if you've ever had water bottles that just sweat uncontrollably, this thing will change your life. So that's my officially sponsored by Hydro Flask messaging for today. The answer to how you win, okay? You have to have eyeballs on your program and efficient communication. So, I will talk a lot right now about process. Your game plan, we're all coaches, we all have game plans. We have game plans when we go on the field, we have game plans in all aspects of our life, is your timeline. Your recruiting timeline is everything. If you do not have a recruiting timeline, you do not have anything. It's random, and you cannot be random in the game of recruiting. You have to be intentional, on point, every day, moving them through the process. I love what Mandy said about getting your top 10 recruits to the next stage, because that's everything that we're about. If you don't have a plan, you don't have direction, and as you can see up there, if you don't have direction, you don't have recruits or a job. It's that simple, okay? We know that colleges are closing, and the competition for getting jobs at the schools that still remain in 10 years is going to be fierce. So proving that you can recruit and raise money and do all the things that make a college coach great is going to be important. So, getting into the details, your timeline has two phases. One is the big picture approach, and two is the detailed approach. Okay, they're both very important, and we'll talk about both of them in detail today. But first we have to ask a question. What matters to you as a coach? We're all recruiting a certain type of athlete. We are all trying to meet certain needs for a recruiting class. If you need a bigger class size, that may take more time. More spots to fill, you need more time. It's that simple. Maybe it is an institutional requirement. Does your, raise your hand if your university has a minimum roster size or a minimum class size. It's a lot of you, okay? That is something that you may need to slow play. Of course, roster projections and planning for future attrition are super important. Maybe it's a transfer ratio. Maybe it's planning for transfers. I mean, certainly the transfer portal nowadays has changed the dynamic in how we recruit transfers. So now, instead of completely filling our class, we do slow play that a little bit to give a little more flexibility and to not over-recruit. So, let's go back. There we go. Planning for our 2021 incoming class. So Division II, June 15th, just opened up. And this gives us our first look at the 21 class. It's been about a month. So in planning for our 2021 class, we want to take our roster projection and allow that to inform everything that we do as a program as it relates to the kids that are coming in. So this is exactly what it looks like for my program. For you, it may be different. I know that going into this fall, we've got 33 student athletes in our program. Okay, we know that. We may have some walk-ons, some different people coming to tryouts in September, but in terms of returning student athletes, it's 33. We know that the year following could be anywhere from 34 to 36. We'll graduate a couple. We'll bring in our class of 2020 to fill in spots. And again, how many of you know there's natural attrition, especially with the transfer portal, kids that maybe aren't super satisfied finding greener pastures elsewhere. In our 2018 class, we brought in 20 kids. Of those 20 kids, 2 of them left. Okay? I'm not naive. I know kids are going to leave, so we have to plan for that. So it's probably 34 to 36. Now, fast forwarding to our 21-22 school year, it looks like we'll have 30 kids before that 21 incoming class arrives on campus. So for me, again, planning for natural attrition, we're looking at a class size of 10 to 12. That puts our roster size at 38, which for me is a good number. In our game, women's lacrosse, I think you should have 12 on the field, 12 that can be on the field, and 12 that are reserve roster, okay, that maybe they're academically ineligible, maybe they're injured, maybe they're just practice players. So we're a little high over that number right there. But again, I'm looking at 10 to 12 as I'm recruiting current kids this summer, and you have to figure out these details. Do the math for yourself. You know when kids are graduating. You know what kids might be on the fence. You know, a kid that's on the fence today is off your roster tomorrow. So having those conversations with yourself, maybe it's a tough conversation, okay? There's a kid, Charlotte North, she's at Duke University, phenomenal women's lacrosse player. I don't know what her personal situation is, but she just announced that she was transferring to Boston College, one of the best programs in the country. Duke is pretty good too. But she chose because she's transferring from an ACC school to an ACC school to burn a year of eligibility to go to a different program. Even your best players may decide to leave and shock you. I hope that doesn't happen for any of us, but the reality of it is that it will. Okay? So, we recruit with 3 categories per recruiting class. Okay? 3 tiers. Our tier 1 is kind of like, again, what Mandy said, those top kids. For us, it's 10 to 20 kids that we are recruiting, and they're designated for athletic aid. Okay? Those are the kids that we are full on after, that it's the most important. Those are the kids that we're going to hunt. And hopefully, again, in this case, we land a little over 50% of them when we fill out our class. Certainly we know that's not realistic. So our tier 2 are the secondary offers. That's a group of 40 to 50. Right now, for me, that number's hovering at 60. Okay? Those are kids that we have a recruit form on that's not just another kid. All right? Those are kids that we've identified as potential fits. Doesn't mean that they check every box for us, but it's a kid that we at least realize, they may have a future at Palm Beach Atlantic. All right? And then if we feel like they're not a fit, or maybe they check one of 4 boxes for us. Okay? Then we move them to the 3rd category. In addition to that, those are also kids that we don't have any information on, that we maybe find through a different event or a list that we have not talked to. That number could be as much as 1,000 or more, 2,000, whatever your number needs to be. Okay? For a sport like basketball or football that's been around for a while, you could have a number that looks like 10,000. Okay? Just depends on what works for you. So let's talk timeline. Okay? I think this is the most important thing that I will say while I'm here in front of you today. How many of you have a recruiting timeline that you follow religiously? Okay. Hopefully this will help. This is a 26-month process. Okay? This is, for us, when a girl who is rising into her junior year hits June 15th, all the way until she shows up on campus. Because even if we get a commitment, we certainly do not stop recruiting them. I'm of the persuasion that even if somebody is committed, somebody's still going to come after that great player and try and land them at their university. At the end of the day, we want what's best for ourselves and our families, and we're going to work for those kids, regardless of whether they're committed or not. Maybe you don't agree with that, but I'm trying to feed my family one day, and I'm going to work really hard, and I'm going to expect the same thing coming my way. So, establishing a timeline. That first point, share your timeline, June of 2019. This happened for us, again, about a month ago, and we'll go over specifics in a moment of exactly how we did this. But once that window opens, we talk to kids, and we tell them, this is our exact timeline. We share all this stuff with them. We say, this is our exact timeline. This is what you can expect from us. What are your thoughts? What is your timeline? Do you have a timeline? Do you want us to help you with your timeline? We're in the business of getting kids to college, whether it's at our institution or not. But we share this with them, so that way they've got expectations. If they've got expectations, that leads to trust. And if it works, academically, athletically, socially, spiritually, we're a Christian university, that is certainly important to us, then maybe we sign on the dotted line at the end of that process. But if not, at the very least, we've aligned them with our timeline as a base, okay, and then maybe they use that somewhere else. So, September of 2019, this is coming up, we want to prepare our prospective student athletes for commitment. Okay, at this point, the class of 2021 will have just gotten to September 1st. Division I schools are starting to talk to them. Okay, that's important, but we're still at other divisions, at least for me, that does not matter. Okay, we believe that we will land any kid that we talk to, whether that's realistic or not. Okay, we believe we'll land anybody we talk to. So I'm talking to that kid and I'm preparing them for what a commitment looks like. Okay, what exactly does it mean to commit to Palm Beach Atlantic and to wear that sailfish uniform? Because we want that commitment. We're going to ask for the sale in December. Okay, but I will say this too. This timeline ebbs and flows from year to year. You can see On here, time for a visit is in November of their junior year. In the past, that was October or September for us. This year, the largest event on the women's lacrosse recruiting trail is called President's Cup. Anybody who's a women's lacrosse coach in here knows that event. Typically in Orlando, Florida, it has moved to West Palm Beach. There will be over 7,000 prospective student athletes in our town. And I mean, again, just taking the obvious here, if somebody is already going to be in West Palm Beach, I'm not going to make them visit twice, unless they want to. And if, of course, you know, enthusiasm will go a long way in terms of making an impact for us. But we understand that we will have upwards of 100 kids on campus during that 5-day period, and I will not sleep during that 5-day period. Okay, the day before, the 3 days of the event, and the day after, that's going to be when we're full go. All right, and that's when we're going to have a lot of kids on campus, and we're going to try and carve out times to meet with them one-on-one, and it's super important for them to get a taste of exactly what our program is like. Now, it was different last year. It's now November this year, but what that means for us and our program, and it may be different for your program as you are creating a timeline of your own, is it means we have to bump our entire timeline back about a month or two, okay? So, in December, we asked for the sale. How many of you are comfortable asking for the sale, all right, when it comes time to ask for a commitment? You gotta ask for the sale, okay? You gotta just come out with it. Recruits love honesty, okay? They want to be wanted, and if you actually have passion in what you're doing, let them know. They love passion. I don't know if you can tell, but if you cut me open, sailfish blue like pours out of my skin, okay? I love my program, and I will do anything for my program, and I hope our recruits know that. So when the time finally comes to ask them for a commitment, say, hey, listen, here's your offer. We'd love to have you be a part of our sailfish family. A lot of times, we get a yes, okay? Sometimes we don't, in which case, we move them down the timeline. You can see we give them about 3 months before we purge that top tier. A lot of times in that time, kids will kind of ascend into that top tier. We don't quickly pull kids off of the top tier, but again, that top tier is reserved for kids that we're going to go after with everything that we've got, okay? So in February, we do purge that top tier. Move them down to tier 2, or maybe they've committed elsewhere and we remove them entirely. But just again, as a quick word on that, even if they've committed elsewhere, I'm not ready to stop recruiting them. One thing shortly after I was hired at Palm Beach Atlantic and I spoke to Dan about was, you know, we didn't have any money, right? And I got hired super late in the recruiting year. So I got hired in September. I was taking my first team onto the field the following September, and we didn't have a ton of resources or time. So when I talked to Dan, I told him, I said, listen, a lot of these kids are already committed. They're coming back to me. They're saying that they're committed. What do I do? And he, again, I was a TCS client, gave me messaging so that I could go to a kid and say, hey, listen, I know that you're committed, but I'm going to keep telling you a little bit about who we are, okay? And a little bit about what we do as a program. And if that interests you, great. Continue to send information, and maybe that affects their decision down the line. Maybe they decommit, maybe they commit to us. And if it doesn't, and they say, that's okay, coach, I'd really rather you don't do that, then that's fine too. But I would encourage you, if that's something you're comfortable with, all right, to keep every option on the table. Because I know, as I said in the earlier slide, it's all about eyeballs. Whether they're committed, non-committed, until that point when they sign, all right, you have to treat them as their fair game. All right? And then in May, we reassess our needs completely. All right, that is obviously kind of that kickoff point as they move forward toward their senior year, high school. So we'll reassess because certainly in the summer for us, and maybe your recruiting seasons are different, the summertime, it's all recruiting. I've been on the road for a month. In June, I was on the road probably 3 out of the 4 weeks, just hustling, grinding, trying to get eyeballs on kids and get evaluations. But it makes no sense to spend 8 or 10 hours on a lacrosse field in the sun in 90-degree weather if you don't know on the back end what your tiers look like. if you're just recruiting kids that have emailed you, that have also emailed 30 other schools, you're going to waste a lot of time. So you have to be focused and you have to have a purpose in doing what you do. Now, fast forward a little bit, get to 2020, in August, right, they've just started their senior year. We start something called a Who We Are knowledge base. All right, this is a series of automated emails that lets them know just exactly what they're getting into. Okay, it starts in August, and that first email they receive says, hey, great news. You're 1 year away from moving into your college dorm. And we are so excited for you to be part of this Sailfish family. So we send this to commits only, okay? I've thought potentially if we do have an available spot or two on that year's recruiting class to maybe send this to kids who are uncommitted, but right now this is committed recruits only. We send this to them, and we tell them information on a regular basis about our university. It's all automated, but we do tell them that we have chapel that you must attend 24 times in one academic year. Like I said, we're a Christian school. That could be a deal breaker for a lot of kids. But we'd rather have them know ahead of time than get to college and in their first year decide to transfer. That's what we don't want. We want raving fans of our university for all 4 years. And so we let them know over the course of that 1 year period until they actually show up on our campus. Okay? Some of it, as we get a little bit closer to them actually arriving, is relevant information to what it looks like to actually move in. You know, we'll send that, I want to say it's about 2 weeks away for our incoming 2019 class. Just so they know, again, this is what it looks like. This is what you can expect with your roommate, who is a lacrosse player as well. Always information. Always taking the guesswork out because they're scared. This is the first time they've ever done it, and they want it to be their last. Allow us to be the resource because we will be the single most influential figure in their lives when they come to our universities. Okay? In October of their senior year, we have an official visit weekend where those girls come in, they put on the jersey, and they play in our blue-white scrimmage with our current team. Okay, that's something that we've done for 2 years now, and it's something that every recruiting class looks forward to. Okay, in addition to that, obviously signing day comes quickly after that. Before you know it, they are arriving on campus August of 2021. In 2025, they graduate, and in September of 2088, I turn 100. So I may still be coaching. I don't know, maybe my knees will probably give out by then. But nevertheless, that is our 26-month process. In its entirety, okay, we're trying to move each and every recruit in each and every tier from stage to stage to stage. If we can do that, we are in good shape. Now that's a big picture approach. So how do we execute? You have to create a system that works for you. Anybody golf? Is anybody a golf coach in here? Okay, great. I'm a pretty bad golfer, by my own admission. But these are my wedges. They're not actually my wedges, but I couldn't bring them on the plane. So I've got a Cleveland 60-degree wedge, which you can see on the left side. And then I have two Titleist Vokey matte black wedges that I got recently that are supposed to be the best and greatest thing you've ever seen. You guys may agree or disagree. Maybe you've got your own favorite brand. But I was told they were great and they look cool. And at least for me, because I'm not a great golfer, golf is about looking cool. So I've hit those Titleist wedges quite a bit in the past couple of months. And for whatever reason, they don't work as well as this rusty old Cleveland 60-degree wedge. I can't explain it. I don't know why. You would think better technology would work. I say that to say you could have the newest and brightest and best of whatever it is, but you have to find out what works for you. I'm telling you a lot about what we do. My hope is that I just give you a platform to stand on to build your own thing, okay? I mentioned how we sent bags of sand out to potential recruits. Okay, how we send postcards and Polaroids out to potential recruits. Whatever your thing is, maybe your timeline is half the size, and that's okay, but you have to figure that out. Because as you can see, all right, this is an example of our tailored recruiting workflow. Okay, so I talked about Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. This is exactly what it looks like. So again, Tier 1 is our primary offer. Okay, this is our most tailored recruiting communication. It's a lot of 1v1 via text and email. Okay, Tier 2, similar to Tier 1, but just less 1v1. Okay, and again, Tier 3, we're just trying to keep them involved. We're trying to keep them in the loop, trying to keep them in the game, all right, as long as possible, because you never know who's a late bloomer. You never know who maybe had thoughts about your program that weren't accurate and they come around later, or maybe they committed, decommitted. So we're trying to keep them in the game. As you can see, doesn't mean, all right, that any one group is getting maybe different types of frequency of communication, but we do value that Tier 1 and Tier 2 group in terms of the higher communication that we give them. So this was the first email that the 2021s got from us. Okay? This is how it was set up. Subject line. And again, these are the details, right? I've got nothing to hide here. So take pictures if you want. My information will be on the slides at the end. All right, we send to Tier 1 and Tier 2. Subject line, email, can I get an updated recruiting form? A lot of them, we already have that information. So we want to make sure that information is most updated. Okay, it's a super quick email. Tier 3, we just ask for a recruiting form if we don't have one. And this is exactly what the email looks like. Hey, first name. Obviously, we're not sending 2,000 handwritten individual emails. We pop this in a front rush. We send it off automatically. All right? So, hey, bracket, F name, exclamation point. We're less than 48 hours away from 1201. NCAA rules allow us to ask for a recruiting questionnaire, so we just want to make sure that we've got an updated one. We'll talk very soon. Thanks. Go Sailfish. All right? We try to get as many of those recruit forms in as possible ahead of the game. We don't want to do it too far ahead of the game, but again, we want to set the standard compared to any other program that may be recruiting these individuals. So we spell it out very simply, and we give them this information. All right, we want to make sure, okay, that they have every small detail to make their decision and their process as easy as possible. On June 15th, okay, hooray, it's Christmas morning. We can finally talk to 2021s. But we got to be ready. Because if we're not ready, somebody else will be. Talked to assistant coach at Army, actually. She's one of the brightest minds in the lacrosse world, super, super talented assistant coach. She was telling me, although their start date is a little different because they're a service academy, about how she made 90 phone calls on their first day. I think it's July 1. It's a little earlier than the rest of the Division Ones. How she made 90 phone calls. You don't do that unless you've got a plan, and that's the bottom line. So, Tier 1, for us, got a text message like 12:01 or 12:10. Obviously, I can't, send an honest text message to a group of 10 or 20 kids at that time unless I do it individually. But that's what they all got. So we just said to them, hey, listen, so excited. Glad you're thinking about Palm Beach Atlantic, and you can expect a lot from us in the coming days and weeks and months. Okay, Tier 2, they got an email. Little bigger group, little tougher to manage, trying to make it easier on ourselves. So we sent them an email, okay? Obviously, it intros the process, a little more love and detail. And then, of course, Tier 3 got a similar email, little less love, little less detailed, designed to generate leads, okay? Again, I come from the marketing world. If I want to fill my pipeline, going back to sales from yesterday, I got to generate leads, and specific leads in this world are kids that are going through the system, filling out recruiting forms and doing that kind of thing. So we drive our information, okay, through that process. This is an example of that June 15th email. It's actually not an example. This is the exact email we sent. So I pulled it up on mobile. This is the first kind of section above the fold, if you will, that they saw our logo. Welcome to Palm Beach Atlantic. That's the water. That's our campus. That's a good majority of the rest of downtown. We say we are Sailfish Lacrosse. Beachside College, check. Outstanding academics, check. Best conference in Division II, check. We let them know every single thing about who we are. So we give them opportunities. We tell them to check out sailfishlax.com. It's our recruiting website, and tell them what it's really like to be a fish. And then we ask them to dive in. It's a call to action. Okay, we want them to click that button. You can look up information about where people, especially if you are sending emails through, you could do it even in MailChimp. Certainly you can do it in FrontRush. They'll tell you what button was clicked and how many times, okay? And yes, this is an apartment complex overlooking the water with a pool on the roof. For some reason, our admissions department does not end tours on the roof at that pool. That's what I would do if I were them. Maybe I've got to consult with them. But nevertheless, this is that next set of scrolls on that email. It's got a picture of me looking all kinds of tough and with a fun sailfish background. Because again, they want to know about you. They want to know who you are and what you are going to be to them over the course of 4 years. Are you going to be their best friend? Are you going to be the disciplinarian that gets the very best out of them? I'm just going to be honest, I'm a player's coach. Sometimes I find it hard to really point and yell and scream and get the most out of my kids, but I'm going to make sure they know that I love them. It goes back to what I said in the beginning, love, honor, unity. I'm always going to pursue unity, okay, as opposed to making sure that I'm right and I'm justified. That's fine. I want to make sure that they know that. So when they click that and they read more about me, that's what they're going to find, okay? And they'll know, whether for good or for bad, exactly who I am. And that gives them a launching point into talking to me and asking me questions. Again, we tell them a little more, show them a picture of our institution, and then at the bottom, we give them 2 more calls to action. One is a link to our family on that recruiting website, and it's got no words on it. All photos of their future teammates, okay? It's all pictures, the different activities that they can be doing, sitting on the beach in a Jeep with the top removed, having a picnic, all that kind of stuff that would be advantageous to going to a beachside college. In addition, we also mentioned the location because that is a huge component for us. I'm not sure what that is for you, but you've got to highlight it. So, this is an example, okay? This is raw data here, okay? This was last year at this time, 2020s, that first contact email that I just showed you, and this was 2021's, okay? For the most part, everything was the same. 2020 sent June 15, 2018 at 12:23 a.m. 2021 sent June 15th at 2:45 a.m. That's East Coast time technically. I was actually in Denver, so it looks a little different. But it's funny. Send the exact same email a year apart. Can somebody tell me why our open rate for the 2020s was 55% and the 21s was about 30%? It's tough to say. But that's why we got to have a plan. Because even if my 2021 email flops, we still have to create results. Right? We can't create excuses. We can't cry about why more kids didn't open the email or didn't respond. You know, you can check out the performance here. Midnight hits, they go to bed, they wake up, they read, and then it drops off from there. We have to take that information, and we can either do something with it, or We can just decide not to send a June 15th email because we don't have a plan or we're lazy or it doesn't matter to us. But even if you're not, know that I am, and I want that kid that you may be recruiting, right? So, June 20th comes around, all right? I just kind of outlined the full week starting on the 13th, then the 15th comes, all right? Now it's the 20th. This is 1 week of communication. I'm telling you exactly how we do it, okay? Everybody gets the same email at this point, and this is what to expect in the recruiting process. And it goes to everybody. How we'll communicate, when we'll communicate. Expectations are key. If you don't have expectations outlaid to your recruits, they're going to look to somebody else for that information. And you don't want to be in second place when that happens. If your rival is sending them information on when they should commit and when they should be heard from and all that kind of stuff, it's not going to end well for you. And you guys all know it. I hate losing recruits to people in my conference. I love all the coaches that I, am a peer to in the Sunshine State Conference, but when they sign a kid that I was after, I kind of take that personally. I feel like we could have been better. And we've got a decent process, but maybe I could have been. So I don't know what it looks like for you, but again, I will say this, in terms of the why and how we do it, Tier 1 and Tier 2, we use Front Rush. Does anybody use Front Rush? Okay, that's a lot of you. Dan was talking to me in the break about Ari and just how great that is. And again, because I want to succeed, I'm going to go talk to those guys. Because if that gives us an opportunity to be 4% better, that just might mean getting the kid that may help develop our program into a champion. So of course I'm going to do it. And I can't wait to talk to you guys later. And then for us, Tier 3, I will mention this. I wouldn't expect you to, but this is Email Octopus. This is my email service that I use. I don't use MailChimp. I use them. They're technically based out of, I think it's England. But for me, it's the cheapest way to send recruit emails by volume. We send emails to 8,616 recipients, and it costs us pretty much nothing. It's $19 a month, and that gives us the opportunity at volume to reach out to a lot of kids who may be interested, and maybe they never respond. It's like the gentleman who was up here that ended up at Cincinnati. He had 19,000 emails about camps and different things. And while that may not be effective, I'm still going to be in his inbox every single day. Maybe not every single day. But I'm going to be there with repetition, okay? So that they know who Palm Beach Atlantic is, because I don't expect a player to know what this logo looks like, but if they see it a number of times, there's a good chance that they may have the ability to know our name. And maybe, this is a novel thought, maybe it's not even about them, but specific to my program, maybe it's about their little sister. Okay, we had an opportunity to recruit a kid who was class of 2017, did not land the recruit. But now her sister, class of 2021, 4 years younger, knows all about us because she spent a year and a half talking to her family about our program. We didn't win the recruit. That kind of thing happens. All right, we don't get bent out of shape about it and move on. But now, I would say that we're in the front running for her little sister just because we were willing to go in depth every single day and make an attempt to land that player. So, when you own your timeline, you will turn logical communication into relational communication. Email is logical. You're sending facts, you're sending stories, you're sending experiences. That's designed to get their brain working. We want to turn it relational. We want to take all of the planning that you just saw and turn it into an opportunity to allow that kid to stand on that field and have an opportunity to succeed. But that only works if you engage the heart. We want to win the heart decision. If you win the heart decision, you will create opportunities to win championships. As it says on the screen, if you win hearts, you win championships. If you win 0 hearts, you're probably going to go 0-17, or whatever that number is. So, with that said, if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. As you can see, My information is on the screen here. That's my cell phone. Would love for you to shoot me a text message. That's my social media handle, Jayson with a Y, Schmidt, on Twitter, Instagram, you name it. That's my email address. That's my blog at the bottom. A shameless plug for creatingfuturewins.com. And yeah, any questions?